Pokemon Ultra Sun and Pokemon Ultra Moon, only on Nintendo 3DS.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, join me in the Alola region. Today, we're talking about Pokemon Ultra Sun. Why are we doing this? Well, number one, your boy's been laid up on the couch sick for like the last week. That's usually a pretty good conduit to some handheld gaming. So I was really vibing out with my 3DS here behind me. Been playing some Pokemon Ultra Sun, and when I wasn't playing that, I was playing more Digimon Story Time Stranger because I'm obsessed with that game. But that's step one of what brought me here. The other was a bit of a cleansing. You know, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon lately. I've been slandering everything from Scarlet and Violet to Legends ZA, but I did remember how much I loved Arceus through all of this. And I started to remember who took me to the dance last, and that really was Pokemon Sun and Moon. That was the last mainline game I can point to and went, yeah, I really like that thing. Didn't start out that way, we'll break that one down, but honestly, I just wanted to check myself. You know, there's just those moments where you strongly dislike something, you see all the infighting online, you're like, am I wrong? Am I right? I don't know how to feel, man. But just going back to this, it reaffirmed so much about how I feel with this game. And this is my first romp through Ultra Sun. I was just playing Moon, like base version when it came out, of course, but then they did the re-releases as they usually do. And so this is my first time jumping through that, seeing some of the new storylines, some of the new features that they added in. But I just want to do a little retrospective on this one. Talk about playing Pokemon Sun in 2025. Share some thoughts with all of you fine folk here as we get back on our feet because we missed a couple of posts while I was out sick. So I appreciate your patience. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into nostalgic or retrospective content, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. All right, so just a couple of things to set us up here. Number one, these games just feel so at home on a DS. They really do. It's one of the rare series where you could argue we shouldn't have gone forward after this point with Pokemon. Like, obviously hindsight 2020, but these games feel completely at home. Their flow, their level design, how big they ended up getting. Like, there's a term we use to describe Pokemon Sun on our development team, and we call it wide linear. Like, there's a lot of different ways to go about exploring, but overall you're kind of getting pushed generally down a pretty linear path. But as you get deeper into the game and it cracks open more and more, it's really pushing the power of this 3DS. It's at a time where we weren't really talking about the technical compromises that Pokemon was making, quite like we did with our recent review of something like Legends ZA. This is when those problems were a thing of the past and it was really about the gameplay formula. And obviously when the Switch came out, that's where it all started to go downhill. But it just feels at home being in your pocket. Not just because of nostalgia, but again, like Pokemon took advantage of those technical limitations and made the most of them and made some great games here, and this is one of them. What I also loved about Sun and Moon, just as another bit of setup here, is the change in setting, because I fell out with Diamond and Pearl. That's when I got into Mega Man Battle Network. But then when they did Sun and Moon, they're like, hey, we're changing the region, we're getting rid of gyms, and we're doing these island trials. That brought up my curiosity once more. I went like, okay, that's new. That's something different. That's a shift. Like, I didn't hate the Pokemon gameplay formula at that point. I didn't know what Legends Arceus was at that time, what it could be. So I didn't have any real issues with like the monster catching or anything. So I was like, okay, cool. This is what I'm looking for. I'm in. So I wanted to check it out. I picked it up. And at first I was a hater. The first 10 hours of this game completely betrays the other like 40 or 50 or so on that you can spend with this game, because it does it such a disservice when you're going through it and it's like, it's the old Pokemon problems. Like, it's shoveling you down a path. It's heavily tutorialized. There's no real flow to it. There's even the most random blockers, like a Taurus at the end of a road that's just not going to let you cross by, even though you see space on its left and right. Like, this is like right after the opening of the game. Like, you just see things like that and you go, yeah, like this game series just makes a lot of weird compromises to prevent you from going off the beaten path. And they don't really think too much about it. But for that first go around, the Alola region does a lot to offset that. It's new, it's based on Hawaii, and the setting itself is just amazing and cozy. And when you combine that with this game's phenomenal soundtrack, it really creates a good feeling for the game. I mean, everything from Guzma's battle theme to Hao's battle theme, the Aether Foundation, its battle theme, the night and day themes for all the towns. Like, this is a beautiful soundtrack, and it really creates a sense of place. So these things do the heavy lifting in the early going, while you kind of just get the wheels spinning a bit with your standard Pokemon tutorial stuff. But once you get out of those first 10 hours, that's where it really starts to kind of break out for me, because it does change the formula. Like, instead of no more gyms, these island trials that you get introduced to in the first couple of hours, I do think make a big difference in how this game is narratively structured, but it takes a while for that to show. You see, we're so used to like everything always funneling to the gyms in every Pokemon game before this. That was always the narrative structure. It would always somehow just throw the gym in as an offshoot, or you'd have to find the gym leader who was caught up in like some Team Rocket ploy, and then you'd fight through that, and then they'd say, hey, now come back to the gym and then you can battle me. Because the island trials were kind of meshed really well with like the legendary Pokemon plot, and then on top of that, what the Aether Foundation was up to, and then also Team Skull, it was just very cohesive would be the right word. And so the game's story by the midway point and on was allowed to kind of take its own pace, focus on the things that made the most sense, that were logical to the player rather than what was logical to a Pokemon formula. And that is the biggest difference of it all. You really don't feel it at first because, like, again, the first 2 hours, you do your first island trial, you're like, yeah, this is like doing my first gym. But when it starts to kind of follow the most interesting path constantly, you know, what's Lily up to? What's the Aether Foundation up to? What's How up to? And screw How, man. Awful rival. This guy's he's not even a rival. He's a friend. That's like one of the big complaints I have about a lot of Pokemon games nowadays is like, I want to go back to being bullied, man. Like make my life a living hell, harass me. Like, I want that rival back. I want a Gary again. Like, just be a snot-nosed brat. I want to hate my rival. I don't want a friend who journeys the world with me and says, hey, let's fight. So yeah, How was like the sore spot in that, but you get my point that the characters kind of created the interesting points in the story, and the game was able to go after that. And I think there's no better point to look at that in than Poketown. For me, this is where I started to really take the game seriously. I remember putting out a tweet, I couldn't find it for this video, but I was hating on Team Skull. I was just like, these people are so corny. They're sitting there going like this while talking to you. I'm just like, bro, like, what is this? Like, why are they doing this? Like, it completely offsets this really great setting. Like, they just feel like, oh, we needed a team, and so we put them here. But then you get to Poketown. When you get to Poketown, there's atmosphere and there's purpose. And this is where you start to really understand Guzma as a character, who I think is one of the best villain style characters that this series has seen, quite frankly. You know, there's other great villains like we see in Black and White, but I mean, they're few and far between because they usually lack complexity. It's usually about like Pokemon and rule the world. But like here in Poketown is where things just start to take shape. Like there's a bit of like drab depression and atmosphere again, which I really like because the game is so uplifting and cozy so often. Thanks again, of course, to this tropical setting and the wonderful music. But then you kind of sit down with Guzma and you start to learn about his neglect and sort of what he experienced growing up. And that makes him and his actions, and in turn his team's actions, a lot more believable, because it wasn't just this like, oh, let's make a riff on Team Rocket and have them try to dominate the world. Like, they're a crew that felt they were wronged and want to do something about it. And I think just that alone adds a little bit more weight to the story, especially when you see how Guzma grows as a character and eventually dissolves Team Skull. Like, that's true growth. And if you get to like the end game where he starts to like help you out more, that kind of growth is what's really lacking in a lot of Pokemon character development. But it all kind of comes back to the formula. This is why people call for change in Pokemon, because this was a game that could afford itself the ability to sort of take you away from the island trials, or what we would usually call the gym leader challenges, and have you go focus on this story mode, because it all kind of naturally weaves together. So it didn't feel like so much time was just being wasted ultimately. So yeah, I just ended up really loving Team Skull, and that's why I have a Guzma in PSA 10 full art in my card collection, because I love that man. He is my GOAT, right there next to like Team Aqua and Team Magma, but that's more like a nostalgia choice. Honestly, if there's a Pokemon game I want to replay in full soon, it's got to be Emerald, because it has been since 2005. Like, it's been so long, and it's my favorite, but can I even say that anymore because it's been so long? Anyway, I mentioned a little bit earlier this Team Rocket thing, this Team Rainbow Rocket thing. I learned about this, and this sounds amazing. It's the one thing that in this whole new package I haven't experienced yet, but they bring back all the old team leaders like Archie from Team Aqua in Pokemon Emerald is back. Cyrus from Team Galactic in Diamond and Pearl is also back. They even brought back Giovanni, and I just love how they lean into the nostalgia in this game because it works well, given that you actually have a pocket for it, whereas the rest of the game is kind of new, exploring these more unusual paths is what I would say, right? Because again, the island trials and the narrative structure kind of break that up a bit more. What this game is missing most, though, is the combat evolutions that the series is known for. I mean, the pacing in these fights, it's awful. I mean, there's so many quality of life enhancements that could make this combat system more tolerable. I think different fight styles would go such a long way. And I don't mean what ZA did. I'm talking like 4 or 5 Pokemon on the field at once, not just like 2 fighting at a time max, because the whole one-on-one thing, like your turn, my turn, gets a little boring. I think that's where agile style and strong style figured a little something out, like turn order manipulation kind of became a thing in Legends Arceus, and I really appreciated that. Whereas old Pokemon games like this, especially because of little quality life enhancements they did add, such as telling you when a move was going to be effective, not effective, super effective on the enemy you're fighting, like it's a great system that they absolutely should have added in. But when you combine that with the fighting style, you basically just have like a shut off your brain turn-based combat game, and I just think Pokemon could be so much more than that. What they do add in the terms of a new gimmick is a Z move, and this is one of those like high risk, high reward battle mechanics that they've added in. One of the ones that I think alongside like Mega Evolutions that has panned out really well, where like you use your Z ring and the power of the trainer and the Pokemon fuse together, and so it's like this one shot for the money type of attack, and it can be very effective in swinging the battle in your favor. And I think Pokemon would thrive on more of those, or follow-up attacks, things like that. So yeah, you can definitely feel the age in this combat system, and it doesn't help again that I'm playing Time Stranger. I know I'm like a walking advertisement for this game at this point, but like one thing that this game does really well is it allows you to use like an item in the same turn as an attack, or even swap a monster out in the same turn and then attack. This just alone, just a little, it's the smallest wrinkle that literally it doesn't even have to be a monster catching game. This could be any turn-based RPG. And that alone makes such a difference in just sort of being able to move and strategize accordingly. I mean, Digimon obviously has like a whole weakness system unto itself, and it doesn't break the combat being able to swap in and out. So you definitely feel the age in the gameplay, and you're really here for the vibe nowadays. Like you really are. You're here for the vibe, and honestly, the story. It's up there where I kind of think about Legends Arceus a bit, where with the Aether Foundation, there is this sense of mystery. And I think they do a great job of providing this kind of sci-fi feel to the game world, where the rest is very like tropical and grounded. Like then you suddenly have this sci-fi element of like, what is this big foundation out on an island, and what are they investigating, and how that starts to play with like time and different dimensions makes it a lot more interesting. But I think the toughest part is, again, what I said earlier, that kind of natural growth of the story. It starts off slow. And even if you're someone like me who knows, hey, I like this thing, it still takes a while to get to those more interesting parts. And it does mean in turn that this game is just like many other Pokemon games, where it's just kind of plagued with those slow openings that just don't trust the player. Still, it has been really fun breaking out this 3DS, man. I mean, I love this handheld. It is one of my favorites of all time, and that dual screen approach did so much for handheld gaming, especially games like Pokemon, where you could run around the world, see that on the top screen, and then, I mean, you can even see it here, like on the part of my volume, but like you can see even on the bottom screen, like the other mini map, like these little things just did so much for quality of life enhancements, or when you actually open the menu itself and you could navigate to like Pokemon or your bag, those sorts of things. Like there was no just single screen experience where you just press pause, but instead you just manage it on 2 different screens. Like it's definitely one of Nintendo's best bits of innovation, and I think Pokemon did a great job of taking advantage of it. Given this was nearing the end of the 3DS life cycle, it just really kind of was like a good send-off for Pokemon moving on. And I gotta say, man, like it's such a shame to see, like after this we got Sword and Shield, and I don't know if y'all know my take on that one, but I think it's like the worst Pokemon game. I really, really, really don't like it. Like, yes, part of it is, oh, it should have been so much more, but that's kind of like everything. Like the leap was so small to the Switch. It was unbelievable. And so to me, this is kind of like signaling the end of an era, like where Pokemon really belongs. And obviously until their tech art department can catch up in like the late 2030s on what games are doing nowadays. I don't think Pokemon games will feel like the way they do on the DS, where it's like, oh, it's doing the best it can. So yeah, ultimately it was kind of nice going back to Pokemon Ultra Sun, just kind of exploring the Alola region again, hopping islands, doing some trials, seeing all the new versions of Pokemon that you do love. Like, all that stuff is great, of course, but I just wanted to go back, check myself, and while I was sick, just sink into something a little more familiar. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I leave it in your hands. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Pokemon Sun and Moon. Do you love these games like I did? Did you have the trouble I did early on and then get into it later? Did you love it right from the start? Let me know. Other than that, though, I'll catch all of you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.